appreciate you taking some time to actually be on this and to learn a little bit more about Azure and how we think about it. Um, we really do see a lot of MSPs losing quite a bit of revenue and margin, or just avoiding Azure altogether because of some of the challenges that come with it. So we'll touch on all those things here in a moment. Just to introduce myself, my name is Mason Fox. I am our account executive here in the Americas. Megan Gower is our account executive in EMEA, who's having some technical difficulties right now, so hopefully joining us here in just a little bit. But if one of us looks familiar, we have been around the channel for quite a while. Megan and I both got started at Autotask some 10 years ago and have been in the channel ever since. And now we find ourselves here at CloudAll, which is an exciting time. Just really quickly, and this is not going to be a demo or a sales pitch by any means, but just so you guys have an understanding of what CloudAll is, or who CloudAll is and what we do. We are an MSP reconciliation platform. We really see ourselves as the intermediate between your guys' vendors and your PSA or whatever you're billing out of. Really trying to validate the data that's coming from your vendors, making sure that you guys are getting billed accurately, but also making sure that everything that you're billing your customers is accurate and in alignment with the usage that they're actually using from any of their vendors, right? So again, that's as much as we're going to get into that today. If anyone has questions, please throw it in the chat. We can certainly address them as they come up. I'd love for this to be as interactive as possible, so please bring all questions forward. I will try to address them as they come up, but I may have to just kind of get them all at the end there. So please let me know if you have any. What we're going to be covering today. So obviously Azure as a whole, right? But there's just a lot of hidden billing problems. Everyone that's doing this is usually doing it either manually or having a vendor process it for them. We'll go through both pitfalls and benefits of both, what the impact overall is to the business, how we can help with that, what this looks like with one of our customers, and we'll go through some kind of quick ROIs, next steps in a Q&A. So just kind of diving into things, right? Like, why is Azure so difficult, and why is it such a headache for you guys to deal with today? Like, one, it really started blowing up, I don't know, roughly 2017 or so. Everyone started moving everything to the cloud. There's this big drive and demand to push everything up there as quickly as possible and to get as many services and everything else up there as possible, right? There are, I don't know, thousands of different SKUs inside of Azure, and it's just an ongoing growing environment that you guys are having to deal with, and is just a ton of stuff that lives up there at this point, with very, very little help coming from those vendors to actually get to what you guys are looking to bill, right? Like, we'll touch on this in a little bit, but if you guys have actually seen any invoices from them, they're insanely ridiculous, right? It's a couple hundred columns long and thousands of rows deep that just have a couple dollars and cents here and there that you need to summarize and figure out how you guys actually want to break those out and bill your customers. So it's an incredibly manual process. And again, with that much data, it's just very easy to have some errors that are going to kind of slip up if we've got humans processing that. And then even when it's all said and done, we've now then got to manually update all of that information inside the PSA so that we can actually bill our customers for it, right? So it's just an incredibly manual and time-consuming process. And given the amount of data that lives in there, it's just an easy error-prone kind of spot to reconcile against every single month. And it's not normal reconciliation either, right? Like, normally you're comparing, they bought one license, we've got one license on the agreement. Did they match up? This is how much time did they use up there? How many devices did we spin up? How many gigabits did we use, right? And then just tacking on a margin and passing along, but making sure we actually capture all of those various components, because they can spin things up live on their own, right? And things are just going to kind of fall into that environment each month, as well as it doesn't line up to your normal billing cycles, right? Azure billing comes on the 15th of the month, 1 month in arrears. So usually you guys are trying to get invoices out on the 1st of the month. We're either now waiting for the next billing cycle to where we're 2 months in arrears, or we're kind of making some guesstimations and guesswork along the way, or sending out another invoice mid-cycle, right? It's a very messy and problem kind of set thing to deal with. So again, like some of those challenges that we see is the volume mismatch, right? Like when you have thousands of SKUs, it's hard for you guys to create thousands of SKUs internally every single time one of those pops up. And then if we're scraping those files to try to make sure we capture all of it, did we build enough logic to actually capture all the SKUs? Did new ones pop up? And again, a lot of these are so similar in their naming conventions and what they're actually doing. A lot of them can get blurred and confused, and again, just cause complexity on that side of things. As well as when you guys actually need to go make adjustments or credits. Like now we're again a month and a half to 2 months in arrears, and it just gets incredibly messy and difficult to track. As well as there's no real audit trail of these things, right? If you've got a human actually going through and auditing these things and manually reconciling each month, it's really difficult to track where an error actually occurred when it does happen. And then again, you've got end users that can spin up things and just provision new things, log into a different environment. And so you're going to get these rogue subscriptions that pop up. So again, if you've got spreadsheets where you've built your own pivot tables and you've got some logic applied, they just tend to break down really, really quickly and easily. All right. I'm assuming these are all pretty recognizable challenges to the most of you. Again, it's just incredibly difficult to avoid at this point unless you've got a vendor reconciling that stuff for you. And when you do that, like they generally do a great job. Like if we look at Pax8, for example, Pax8 can consume all of your guys' Azure logs, reconcile it all, and not necessarily reconcile it all, but consume it all, summarize it all into individual customer charges. But you lose some flexibility when you do that, right? You don't really have the flexibility then to break out maybe reserve instances over the rest of their usage or charge different margins for different services. It's just kind of an all or nothing and set and forget it. So again, there's just kind of pros and cons to doing it either way. If those on the phone today haven't actually seen what these invoices look like, this is an example of one of our customers. We removed all sensitive information, but again, it is literally hundreds of columns long. This would literally scroll on for another, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 columns. And if you look down here, we've got 55,000 rows, right? That's an insane amount to summarize. And when we look at the individual charges, it's literally dollars and cents. A lot of them are $0, right? No actual cost associated with any of these lines. You've got different resource groups lining up different customer names. Like there's just a lot of complexity that can be built into these. Again, some having your RRP or MSRP, others having nothing, right? So there's just all sorts of different challenges that are baked into these things. But just wanted to show this in case any of you actually haven't seen what those invoices look like. It's one of the more insane ones I've ever seen. So again, like the main reasons why manually doing this is such a problem and why it's such it just breaks down frequently is again, if you're building your own formulas to put in place on these, the second they move your cost from column B to column C, or they change their format in any other way, your spreadsheets break down and it doesn't necessarily apparently jump out to you some of those times, right? Like depending on what columns got switched. But it's just, they do it frequently enough to where it's a major headache, a major problem to kind of continuously keep up on. As well as, again, if you've got humans that are actually going in and doing this and you've got 55,000 lines to actually rake through, like, I don't know about you guys personally, but I don't think that I could get through probably more than 500 lines without my eyes just bugging out of my head and having some sort of mental breakdown, right? Like, we're just not physically built to scrub data at that level of detail at that volume. So human error is just going to build up over time, right? And I think I mentioned this earlier. There's no audit trail with that type of a process. We're manually reconciling, we're pulling everything into a spreadsheet and then manually pushing all of those changes into a PSA. There's no audit trail anywhere along that in terms of if we make an error or we round things incorrectly or we miss a charge altogether. It's just we assume we made a human error, but there's no trail for any of that. And then obviously, the more of this you're doing, the less it's going to scale, right? Like the more time you're going to be spending doing it, the bigger of a headache it's going to be doing, the more SKUs you're going to be dealing with, the more errors that we just generally see compound over time. And I'm going to pause for a quick second. I think my co-host just joined us. Megan, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you guys. Sorry to be late. So of course, that's what you get when you're traveling for work and Wi-Fi is not great. So apologies, everyone, but thanks for joining. And yeah, nice to meet everyone. Yeah, and as Mason said, we see Azure as being one of the largest growing lines of business. There's a lot of struggle around it, and for us, it's a real shame because we see it as a real opportunity for a lot of MSPs out there. And when we're first speaking with a company for the first time, when we ask if they resell any Azure, you generally get one of three responses, which is yes, we do. It's a pain to bill for. No, we don't. We wish we could. Or you get a mix of the two. We wish we could do more Azure, but it's just too much of a struggle to bill for and manage. So yeah, I definitely agree with what you just mentioned there, Mason.
Yeah, it's and again, it's not going anywhere, right? Like this is just becoming a bigger and bigger challenge and push to move everything to the cloud, right? So we see this as a bigger and bigger challenge every single day. And it's unfortunate that you guys have been left on your own to deal with it, but here we are. All right, Megan, let's keep moving this along. Appreciate you joining and glad your internet's working. Um, but yeah, what does this really cost you guys at the end of the day, right? Like, yes, there's going to be some revenue leakage, right? We're going to have incorrect margins on things. We're going to miss SKUs. We're not going to charge customers for every single thing that they're actually using because there's just going to be errors in those files. You're going to start to have customers picking apart invoices, right? Like, oh, we didn't use this or we didn't actually have this in provision that month. And then those credit notes, like I mentioned earlier, it's a massive headache to deal with when we're looking at Azure specifically just because of their billing cycle and arrangement, right? When their invoices come a month and a half in arrears, or excuse me, a month in arrears, but it's 15 days after the end of the billing cycle. Again, it just doesn't line up with your guys' normal billing process to where you're either needing to wait an extra month. And again, we're now 2, 3 months arrears, right? When we're making all these processes and changes, it just gets very, very messy to deal with along the way. And then you guys are spending God knows how much time actually manually reconciling this stuff, right? Like I've talked to some partners where it's a couple hours alone just on Azure. I've talked to some where it's days just trying to figure out the Azure stuff. And there's just so much complexity, especially if you start to get into mergers and acquisitions, or if you're buying from multiple locations, different vendors, different disties. Like it just becomes an absolute nightmare to manage and is an incredibly time consuming process. And even some of our MSPs have had to hire extra headcount just to help scale with their Azure scale.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, Megan,
definitely.
you've seen this. You've been here longer than I have at this point. Like, what have some of your partners been seeing when they're talking about the actual cost of Azure?
Yeah, definitely adding a resource to the team to manage Microsoft as a whole, but part of that is Azure, right? And then also, we see different ways that companies will set this up in their PSA when we'll cover this in a further slide, but set it up in their PSA, then decide as a business, how are we going to bill for this thing? Because it's changing every single month. It's difficult to manage. Do we just bill a flat rate? Do we pass through the cost? And again, like I said, it's a real opportunity. It's one of the biggest, most growing lines of business that we're seeing at the moment. So there is a tremendous opportunity for MSPs with this, and a real need for it. And also, the cost is really the biggest one that I see would be around the time that it takes to try and sort through the really ugly, awful data set that you get every single month with your Azure usage on it and try and make sense of it and try and do it in an efficient manner. And a lot of MSPs are doing it manually by hand today. So to me, that is the biggest impact on the cost is the time it takes to try and bill properly for this.
Yeah. Well, and I hear a lot of people like AI is the biggest buzz going around right now, right? I hear a lot of people thinking, well, why don't I just chuck all this data into AI and let it figure it out for me? And I'm sure most of you have dealt with AI in some form or fashion, or you've at least heard some of the horror stories going around the news and whatnot, right? Like a lawyer having made up cases, right, that they're referring to when they actually go to court, or I don't know. There's a number of different things, right? Like AI is amazing, and the automation you can get out of it is incredible. But at the end of the day, it really is just automation. So if it's poor data or if they don't understand it well enough, it's going to be poor results coming out of it. And we've seen that time and time again. Like automation just for the sake of automation doesn't really help, right? Like accuracy is the underlying fundamental thing that we're looking to achieve. Every bit of automation that you can tailor on top of that is great. And there's this big struggle and balance trying to figure out, well, where can we get automation versus where is that kind of breaking our accuracy, right? And so again, like just kind of keep that in mind as we're working our way through things. It's not just automation for the sake of automation because you're going to get bad results and you're going to get every one of these issues on the screen as well, just with automation alone. Like the goal is we need to get everything accurate and as quickly as we possibly can.
Yeah, totally.
Megan, I'll let you
Yeah.
touch on this.
Yeah, this one I'm actually really passionate to talking with different companies about. When it comes to Azure, there's three decisions every single business needs to make. Besides, are you going to resell it or not? That's the obvious one. The first one is let's look at how it's going to be represented inside your PSA. Do you set it up as a reoccurring service, or do you set it up as a one-time charge? And what I see most of the time is a lot of MSPs will set it up as a recurring service. It's something that we're going to bill our clients for mostly every single month. It makes sense for them and their world to do it as a recurring service, but actually, there's a lot of challenges around that, and we really recommend looking at a one-time charge because essentially that is what Azure is. It's not a recurring service. It is a one-time charge that differs every single month. Some months it's there, then it goes away for 2 months, then it's back. So one-time charge is the recommendation. There's a lot of benefit in getting an audit trail inside your PSA when you have it as a one-time charge versus a single reoccurring service that you just rewrite over every single month and just change the cost in the cell. You lose a lot of that visibility in that audit trail. The second decision you sort of have to make is, well, how do we price this? Because it is a little bit of a tricky beast. It's not simple like a Microsoft license or any other license where you just tack on a margin or a certain markup and you resell it every month. And sometimes it changes, sometimes it doesn't. Um, there's a few different ways. And actually, if you guys see that QR code at the bottom, I wrote an article about this, and it goes way more in detail than what the slide shows. But basically, we see it a few different ways on how MSPs, starting from the worst way that I see this resold, would be a fixed flat fee. It makes sense to me. It's very difficult to bill for. I get it why you would say, you know what, let's just figure out a price point we feel comfortable to sell it at. Doesn't change. January, that looks good, but by March, you're probably bleeding margin. And some months you win, some months you lose. But actually, for the MSPs that we see pricing it out this way, you'll see more often in the long run, they're actually losing money on it. There's environments that were spun up that were forgot to be decommissioned and what have you. So the second one that we see is, well, maybe we'll just offer it to our clients because we know it's appealing and they need it, but we just won't make any money off of it. We'll just pass it through and charge exactly to the client what we are charged ourselves. That's okay if you have that set up. But again, we see this as one of the fastest growing opportunities for MSPs. So why not put a margin on top and make some money, especially because you guys have to take time to manage this stuff. You should be earning money off of it. The third one is to just consolidate it into one line in your PSA, and it's Azure, and we're going to charge our client X amount every single month, and that obviously is going to change depending on how much you're billed as an MSP from the vendor. Our recommendation that we see work the best would be your sell price should be your cost from the vendor plus your margin, whatever that may be. That is the easiest way to resell this and get some value for yourselves as a company. The third decision is how's it going to look on the client invoice? So we've decided we're going to set it up this way in the PSA. We've decided we're going to bill for it this way. How does that appear on your client invoice? And that's really important because you really need flexibility. You have clients that are more technical, that understand the breakdown and the components of Azure, and you've got some clients that are not technical at all. They're going to ask a lot more questions. It's almost like a double-edged sword. If you show them the details, you might then get a waterfall of questions about it, especially when Azure changes all the time. It can be a drastic swing, and all of a sudden you've got to answer to your client why last month was it this and now it's higher this month. So yeah, on the invoice, the way that we really see works well and we would recommend is having the flexibility to do both. And so ultimately, the golden setup is to have it as a one-time charge that you bill out every single month. Have it as a one line Azure in your PSA, but then in the invoice description, put the components in there and you can add in the different cost makeup structure. So for those customers that are technical and want the visibility and want the explanation every month, you can give them that visibility. For the clients not technical, you can just show it as one line. So there's a few different decisions. There's really no right or wrong way. I'll just preface this by saying that, but there are ways that will make your life harder, ways to make your life um, more easy.
Well, and it's just like everything else, right? Like the more you can standardize, the easier you guys are going to make things on yourself. So highly recommend doing so. Obviously, each customer might want different visibility or a different breakdown or a different arrangement, but again, having a standardized process and selling it the same way and having the same expectations is certainly a much easier way to kind of keep your guys' selves in line every month.
Totally.
And I think we've got our next image actually touches on. So this is a screenshot of what the Cloud Olive portal looks like, and specifically for Azure. And so there's a couple different things I wanted to point out on this slide. Like Megan was saying, right? Not every customer wants it the exact same way. You need some flexibility to highlight and showcase different things. So you'll notice what we've done in this instance is we've already taken those really large, nasty Azure files and consolidated it down to a single charge per customer. And so if you were looking at this top line item here, right, we've got our Able Manufacturing, we've got their actual cost, and we've got a 25% margin that we've tacked onto it. And then we can sync this into the PSA as an actual charge itself, so not living on those reoccurring subscriptions. But you'll notice there's different margins for each one of these different customers, right? Because not every customer is going to get the same margin. You're going to charge some more, some a little less. And maybe this is standardized for you, but again, having the flexibility to charge what you guys actually are selling these at is a nice way to have this systematically done. As well as you probably notice, like these are all normal, just one charge for Azure for these customers. But for Trafford Center, we actually broke out the reserve instances as a separate line item so that they can actually have that on their invoice as well, because that's something that's important to them and they wanted to see. But for all of these, we can actually break out the individual components that make up that summary charge, right? And so this would be an example of what that looks like and can again automatically be done. And then this makes its way into the invoice description field. So again, shows up on that invoice and gives them those level of detail. Before we let's keep moving. So again, guys, we're just talking about Azure right now, right? And this can be an incredibly time-consuming process to work through. Again, if you've got 55,000 line items in a file, which is one of the more horrendous that I've ever seen, I'll give you that. But even if you've got several hundred, right? Like this is going to take a couple hours to work through. The Cloud Olive rate starts at $400. So if you're spending just even a couple hours on Azure alone, let alone the rest of your environment and billing in general, this ROI kind of starts to make sense pretty quickly and again, just incredibly fast.
Yeah, just to preface this as well, 400 USD, euros, anyone that would buy in euros or GBP, a little bit different of a pricing, but at least this thing could give you some sort of ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah. And in general, like we're generally seeing about a 3 to 7% error rate when we're looking at Azure. And it's not just Azure. We look at MSPs and their billing practices as a whole, especially on the recurring subscriptions. Like there's just a lot of errors that build up over time. And whether it's Azure or whether it's the rest of your environment, like it's usually about a 3 to 7% revenue leakage that we're seeing. And again, some of that's just overbilling with your vendors themselves, things you guys didn't realize were actually being purchased. Some of it's just misalignment with what you're actually billing your customers, and we're actually underbilling by quite a bit. But if you can think about what 3 to 7% of what your monthly recurring revenue is, and what that would mean to you to get back, and not just the revenue itself, but the time and the headache of dealing with all these processes as well, Like that's generally what our partners are seeing and what we're seeing in terms of an error rate when we're auditing our partners when they're coming on board with us.
Yeah, and also I just want to add, some of that revenue is nothing to do with the vendor, by the way. Some of it we've seen just strictly inside the PSA, and I'll tell a story that to me was probably the most shocking since I've been here. I've been at Cloudolive for about 3.5 years now. I was working with an Irish partner, and we were just going through their Microsoft in Cloud Olive and found something suspicious looking that was 1,200 euros they were leaking every single month. And when we dove into it, that leak had been going on, and it was for one customer, one service only. That leak had been happening for about 23 months. So that counted, I think I did the math, and it was like 17,000 euros or something. Huge chunk of money, and the culprit was simply because the decimal point was a position off inside their auto task. And not again, nothing to do with vendor data and not billing for a few licenses. It just has to do with the data quality inside the PSA and not having a way to easily be alerted when you're not making margin, when margins go backwards, these sort of errors as well. So there's a lot of different things that we see that can contribute to, yeah, revenue recovery.
Yeah. And guys, I just realized we are coming up on the top of the hour here, and I meant to leave more time for questions. Were there any questions that have come through on the chat so far? I don't believe there has been. But on the screen, what you guys are looking at right now, if you'd like, we will do a free audit of your Azure environment. And we could probably expand the scope a little bit further than that. But Azure, for sure, we can do an audit, make sure that what you guys are getting billed actually has, the margins and everything else that you're expecting, and can take a look and see how you guys are billing it and compare.
Yeah, definitely. Give us your messiest Azure file. We love to make sense of it and make life easier. So, and like Mason mentioned, we're happy to do a PSA review on how that's set up inside your PSA, give you best practice recommendations, what could make your life a little bit easier for the team. Regardless if you ever decide to go with Cloud Olive or not, this is sort of help that we want to give you guys just to make your life a lot more simple. And if there's any specific challenges you guys have around buying or reselling Azure, throw them in the chat. We'd love to read through what everyone's experiencing.
Give us your messiest. Are there any clean ones, Megan?
Actually, no. Yeah, that's true. All right.
Did we get a question there? And Megan, I'll let you take that if you don't mind.
Let me put my
Where did it
glasses
go?
on for this one. Let's see here. Chantal, I did see you on the webinar. That's awesome. I appreciate the feedback. It's been a game changer for her. She does a combo of both one-time and reoccurring charges. And yeah, I appreciate the shout out, Chantal. That's awesome feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I know we are at the top of the hour here. Megan, are you able to stay on and answer a few more questions? I do unfortunately have to jump to my next engagement.
Yep, I can happily stay on if anyone's got any more anything they want to throw at us, any specific questions about how your PSA is set up, how it looks on your client invoice, any customer queries that have come back to you guys after billing for Azure. Yeah, open up the chat for another minute or two if there's any thoughts.
And thank you guys very much for taking the time to meet with us here today. And hopefully you gained something valuable out of this. And hopefully we have a chance to catch up here in the near future.
Yeah.
All right, I'll leave you in Megan's capable hands, but thank you again, everybody. Take care.
Yeah, I'll keep the chat open for another minute or two. Thanks, Luke. Thanks for jumping on. We'll also be sending around the recording, and also can send over the QR codes if you guys want to take a look at the Azure blog that I recently wrote. There's some screenshots in there on how it can look inside your PSA, how it can look on your client invoice. So the whole goal of writing that was to hopefully try and help MSPs and give them a guide on what we've seen work, what we've seen not work so well, and let you guys decide what's the best way to do it for yourselves and your business. But any other questions? Otherwise, I'll think we can call it and jump off. All right. All right, guys. Yeah, if anything does pop up afterwards, you're welcome to email any of us, and happy to have a chat with you guys and hopefully make your life easier. But yeah, I just want to say thanks so much everyone for jumping on, and yeah, hopefully talk to you all soon. Take care, guys. Bye bye.